Welcome to Transformative Principal. I am Jethro Jones, your host, and I am excited to invite you to participate in the Transformative Leadership Summit happening August 1st through 14th. We are going to have a great list of amazing guests who will be presenting: Jerry Pascal, John Wenstrom, Bill Ziegler, Chris Weger, Justin Bader, Will Parker, and a host of other amazing principals and leaders to help you be the best principal you can be. Go to transformativeleadershipsummit.com to sign up. Transformative Principal, episode 132 with Amy Fast. Today we're continuing our conversation with Amy Fast, and we're going to really dig in deep to the measuring the intangibles, where you ask the kids what it is that they need. And I hope that you enjoy this. She's going to give some ideas of how to get in there and do that. And of course, she's going to talk about how to be a transformative principal, which really is a summing up of everything that we're talking about today. So I hope you enjoy that. With summer coming up, we principals have a unique opportunity to get a lot of work done with no students and few teachers. If you want to learn a goal-setting program that makes your goals come to life, go to transformativeprincipal.org and sign up for the email newsletter and get my goal-setting framework that helps me accomplish a lot in a little bit of time. So what I want to know from you is, how do you do the survey? What questions are you asking, and how individualized for my school does that need to be? Or could I just copy your survey? Right.
Well, I'm going to speak to something you said first, and then I'll answer that if you don't mind. So it was interesting after doing the survey and all the student focus groups we led, what we realized, what gives us the biggest bang for our buck, and this is backed up by research, and I can't quote whose research because it's off the top of my head, but my colleague and I call it micro behaviors. So it's not even like it, because it sounds overwhelming to say, how do I make kids hopeful, or how do I make them feel connected? But it's really like 10 smiles in the hall it carries more weight with students than one 45-minute heart-to-heart. So it's really all those cumulative little things that add up, like I missed you yesterday, or saying have a great weekend when they leave. All those tiny things, if you've got every teacher in your building doing it all day long for the 13 years students are in public education, that really makes a huge difference. So it's really not an overwhelming task when you think about it. That's something that makes me really hopeful. As far as the survey itself and how we rolled it out, I don't know if you're familiar with Google Forms at all. Do you have the Google? Okay, so
yes, very much so.
So we just created a Google form, and I believe we asked 6 to 8 questions, not a lot, or framed them as statements. It started when there was a school shooting at a college, not far away from our high school. And I just really had this need to do something that was proactive, because obviously students who are feeling good about their lives don't shoot up schools, so I wanted to take an approach that was less about security and more about well-being and knowing how our students are doing. Because
whoa. You want to take an approach that was less about security and more about well-being? Is that what you just said?
Yes.
So are you saying that instead of making mandatory lockdown training, we should maybe just make sure that our kids feel good about being in school?
Call me crazy.
You are crazy.
Right. So
that's awesome.
If we have the pulse on how our students are doing and work to make sure that they're doing well, not just academically, but in those other areas, we don't have as much to worry about. So that was the impetus for the survey. And then we literally crafted, myself and 2 of my colleagues crafted the statements based on, I don't know if you're familiar with Gallup research at all, but there's a national student Gallup poll, and they measure students' hopefulness and well-being and engagement and those sorts of things. So we kind of crafted some of our statements around their general areas. And so we had one that said, I'm hopeful about my future. And then it kind of elaborated a little bit about that. And of course we had it in English and Spanish, and they literally clicked agree or disagree. And then there was a place to comment. And we had one that said, I'm connected to my peers. I feel respected by the other students in the school. There's one that said, my teachers care about me and I have a connection to at least one staff member or something like that. I feel like I matter to people in the school, the things that I care about. People know about the things that I care about or are passionate about, or something like that. And then something about being discriminated against if they'd ever experienced discrimination in the school. and to elaborate on that. And then if they would be willing, if they found out about something that concerned them, would they report it? And I may have missed a few. So basically there's just a handful of questions, and then they, like I said, they gave comments, and it was really important to me and my colleague at the time to have a face-to-face with every student in the school, because we have a pretty large comprehensive high school. And, I could walk down the halls and people not even, students don't even know that I'm an assistant principal there. So I wanted to, because I'm a first year assistant principal in the school, I kind of wanted to introduce myself anyways and form that connection with students myself. So like I said, we went into 75 different classrooms and said, here's who I am. Here's what we care about. Here's what we want school to be all about. And we care about how you're doing. And we're here to make sure that you're set up on a trajectory where you can experience joy in your learning, and school can be a safe place for you to be, and a place where you feel connected to people and feel like you matter. And so we want to get this information from you because we want to do right by you. And, all the time we sit in these back rooms as adults and we make decisions about how to do right by you and how to help you on your trajectory. And we never ask you, and you know more than anyone. So we're asking you today. And so please be honest. And while this survey is not anonymous, it is confidential. And you can say what you want to say. You have free reign. So here's your chance. And it was amazing. And so we ended up with this, as you know, if you're familiar with Google Forms, the responses kind of print out in this giant spreadsheet. So we had a team of people who took each of the various topics on the survey, and we were responsible for codifying them. So I was in charge of students' feelings of connection. Someone else was in charge of significance. Someone else was in charge of discrimination. Someone in charge of safety, hopefulness. So you get the picture. And we basically said, we read all the comments that students gave. We said, what are the major themes that are emerging here? So with connection to staff, I think there were 5 different themes, some as simple as, I'm new here, I'm a freshman and I haven't really had the chance to get to know people. So that's why I don't have a connection. And some, that were different and a little more concerning. So we then were able to take from those students who were struggling with having connections to staff and pull a focus group and basically turn these students who are kind of disenfranchised students and who aren't feeling like the staff cares about them, and turn them into leaders of the school. So we call them in and say, I bought them pizza, and we sat down with them and said, hey, what can we do? This is horrible. Like, you guys aren't feeling connected, and I'm sorry. And why is that? Tell us a little bit more. And now what should we do as a team? Like, you guys and us, what are we going to do about this? And so those students kind of became leaders in the school in terms of, fostering connection between students and staff. So it was really cool work. And I had a student stop me in the hallway, and she's like, Mrs. Fast, right? Because, it was in the fall and I was new there. And I said, yeah, that's my name. And she goes, hey, I just wanted to thank you for what you guys are doing with this student survey. She said, all my friends and I have been talking about it, and we didn't realize that administrators even remembered what it was like to be teenagers. And it's pretty cool what you're doing. And do you mind if I give you a hug? And I said, of course not. And so she gave me a hug. But
throw a hug on me.
Yeah, it was just, it meant a lot to our students too. They didn't just think of it as, here's another thing that's happening in the school day, and check next. So they realized that we are really working hard to give them a voice.
That's awesome. Very inspiring. And I love that approach. So just to make sure I understood it correctly, you asked the questions, kids had a choice of agree or disagree, not like very strongly agree, slightly agree, kind of agree, just agree or disagree. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think that's really important to clarify that forces a choice, right?
Yes, correct.
And forces you to lean one way or another. And I really like that approach. And then they could leave comments afterward.
Correct.
On each and every question, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the small changes that you've made because of what kids had said in that survey?
The big changes that we've made were around professional development. So we basically let our student voices dictate a lot of our professional development this year. And we're fortunate to have an embedded staff development model where during teachers' prep periods every other week, they come and with a group of like 10 to 15 teachers get professional development from myself and one of the instructional coaches in our building. So we were able to say, what are the largest needs from our students, and let's cater our professional development around that. So that was one of the large changes. And it's hard because I really feel like the work that matters in schools has much more to do around mindset than it does around skill set. So I'd like to say, well, here's some kind of initiative we implemented, or here's some kind of thing that we all did every day. But really it was just a lot of hard discussions with staff and all of us working to collaborate around changing our mindset around our practices in schools, not so much our skill sets. One of the great ideas that came from students in the focus group, which is, it's so crazy because it's the simplest ideas that are often the most profound. And it's like, why are we working so hard? We can just do this. They were like, it'd be great. Those like exit slips that teachers give. And we're like, yeah. And they said, well, what if like once every couple of weeks, they just said, hey, how are you doing? Is there anything you want me to know about what's going on in your life? And instead of asking us a question about content, they just asked us because they said, if my parents get divorced or if I broke up with my boyfriend, it's really awkward to like walk up to my teacher in the middle of the class and say, hey, by the way, you should know. So they said there's not really a platform for that. So if teachers elicited that kind of information from us, we really want them to know. We just don't know how to tell them. So that was one thing that some teachers started implementing that they said made a huge difference. They just feel like they know their students exponentially better than they did. And that opens doors for conversations. And then students, of course, feel known, and feeling known is what builds that connection. So just one little thing.
Yeah, that's incredible. So that's a simple idea that I was talking about. How much of a difference can that make in a school if you ask kids once every 2 weeks, is there anything you need me to know? I mean, that's pretty cool, Amy. So how awesome. I'm going to pause for just a minute here and talk about how you can help support the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I learn a ton from doing this podcast, and I know you do too. If you'd like to support me in this, you can become a patron through Patreon, and that would mean the world to me. You can support me for as little as $1 a month, but anyone who supports me for $5 a month or more will get the Transformative Principal members only feed, which releases the interviews as I record them rather than on a weekly schedule. If you've binge listened to any of the past episodes of this podcast, this is for you. And I know you're going to love it. So you're going to learn as quickly as I learn. And I thank you for supporting me. To become a patron, just go to transformativeprincipal.org. And on the right-hand side, there'll be a little button that says Become a Patron. You can click on that and support me. Thank you so much for your support. So the big change you mentioned was around professional development. What does your professional development look like that changes the teacher's mindsets?
We have a behavior psych that helped us with some of it, and a school counselor that we rolled in. But a lot of it is focused around the data itself. So the first thing we did is we showed, because the Google form will print off pie charts. 75% of our students say they feel connected, but that means that there is a fourth of our students who are not connected to teachers. So what are we going to do? So then we actually pulled anonymous comments. We made them anonymous from the survey, and allowed teachers to read through the comments of how students were feeling and basically collaboratively together discuss what we can do and share out. So it was not so much, here's the research on how to connect with students and here's what we're going to roll out, but it was more grassroots, where here's what our students are saying. What can we do about that? Work collaboratively as teachers, and then together, let's kind of own this and share out and decide upon certain things that we commit to doing that students are saying would make a difference. So, we're firm believers at our school that what's best for students is also best for staff. So the PD that we lead is rarely sit and get, and it's very much grassroots and owned and led by teachers. And there's a lot of academic conversation and collaborative group work and ownership on their part of whatever the topic is that we're tackling on any given day.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. So at my school, we're doing this thing called trauma-informed strategies and stuff at our school. And what we've seen with that is that what we're seeing with teachers is that they are just stopping and thinking a little bit more about what could be going on in that kid's life that could make them feel like they are accepted, right, loved, all those kinds of things. And
exactly, that's the mindset piece. Yep, exactly.
Right, and that's been a pretty big deal. So we had a 3-hour training on how to be trauma informed, and we gave every adult in the building a fidget box for kids. Mm-hmm. They had Play-Doh and timers.
We had that at our meeting too. Yep.
Awesome. So what we saw with that was some initial hesitation, like the teacher saying, you're giving me this, and that means that the kids are just going to do whatever they're going to come up and do this whenever they want. And we were saying, no, that's not what we're saying. Like,
right.
You're still in control. So just because a kid is having a bad day doesn't mean that they get a free pass to do anything they want. But if you can keep that kid in class and have them do something that's not going to disrupt everybody else and have them still be learning, that's what we're going for. So sometimes kids do need to be excused from class. Sometimes kids need to stay in class, and sometimes kids need to still get in trouble, right?
Yep, exactly.
But the reality is we need to have different approaches and try to figure out as best we can what our kids actually need. So,
and I'm a firm believer that having high expectations and empathy are interdependent and not mutually exclusive. So I don't feel like you have to sacrifice one for the other. So I completely agree.
Yeah, totally. So Amy, I appreciate your time. I think I could probably talk to you for another 6 hours about this because you are totally speaking my language. And
well, let's do it again sometime.
The last question that I ask everybody is, what is one thing that a principal can do this week to be a transformative principal like you are?
It's kind of piggybacking off of what I just said about, our teachers deserve the same kind of instruction that our students would get. If we're saying it's so important for students to be hopeful and connected, to feel significant in order for us to expect them to put in the kind of effort that they need in order to be successful, then the same is true for teachers. And teachers need to feel like they matter, and they need to feel hopeful about the work that they're doing in schools, and they need to feel connected to their students as well as their administrators and their peers. So I would say that it's equally important to give staff a voice and to let them know on a daily basis exactly how much they matter, and to continuously form those connections with them, because this work is really, really hard work, and it's all being done on the backbones of our teachers. So again, we have to fill their cups if we expect them to be able to fill others, and they're running on empty often. And, in fact, I wouldn't even say we need to fill their cups as a means to an end. Like, let's not fill their cups so that they can give to students, but let's fill their cups because they're human beings and they deserve it. And that's what we need to model for them so that they can do the same for our students.
And yes, absolutely. Amy, how can people learn more from you and get connected with you?
Well, on Twitter, my handle is Fast Cranny, as you know. So people can message me on Twitter. They can email me at fast.cranny@gmail.com. I'm super excited for these ideas to be out there and for people to be talking about them. And I'm not a self-promoter, and I don't need people to buy my book, but I really want this to be a conversation that is happening and that we are having in this country right now. So please include me in that conversation, however you see fit, because I want to learn from everyone else as well, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. So I'm eager to talk to more people.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
That was a great interview with Amy Fast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I know I sure did. Let's keep in mind that the people we're working with are human, and we should treat them with respect and dignity because of that. What a great message from Amy Fast. It's been an awesome opportunity for me to interview her and learn from her. If you wouldn't mind, take a moment and sharing this with others so that they can learn what you're learning. I know that I learn a ton from these. I know you learn a lot from them. Please share them, and let's let other people learn the great things we're learning. And then also, please take a minute and just give me a rating in iTunes. Let others know that you think that this podcast is valuable. Thank you so much. Transformative Principal is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators by educators. Visit edupodcastnetwork.com for more great podcasts.